Hello, Lyme-ish. Zoom, zoom. Here we are in my little car that's still not fixed. We've had several deaths just in the last week in the Lyme community, and I'm getting really sick of it. I wanted to do something funny today, and I just can't bring myself to do it. And I've been really sad. Really, really sad. And what I do when I get sad is I turn it into mad. And as many of you know, a group of us went and protested at the US DOJ in June of 2015. And the reason we were there was to protest the DOJ's ignoring of our pleas, to prosecute the individuals who committed the crime of falsifying the Lyme disease case definition, to exclude the 85% who have an AIDS-like outcome. And they've done nothing. And we're left with this case definition that's bogus, that's been bogus since the Dearborn Conference in 1994. So I wanted to read to you today a letter that I just submitted to the Kansas Attorney General's website. They have forms for all other types of complaints. What's your complaint? Is it elder abuse? Is it consumer fraud? There's all kinds of stuff, like roofing contractors who screwed you over. There's a form to complain about them. There's not a form to complain about systemic denial of an entire disease, an entire process that is well documented in the literature. No form for that. So they have just a general box where you can fill in your information and type up your complaint, which is what I did. And I'm going to now read to you what my complaint was to the Kansas Attorney General, Derek Schmidt. Here we go. The US DOJ appears to be ignoring the pleas of millions of sick people. So I'm requesting that the issue be addressed at the state level. Kansas can be the leader in advancing the cause of justice for those who are denied acknowledgement and treatment for post-sepsis syndrome, a condition of acquired immune deficiency that can result from a tick bite or an injection or infusion of a fungal-type toxin. See the NECC scandal of 2012 and long-term outcomes of the victims. The condition is scientifically well documented, but is denied by the HHS, CDC, and NIH, and subsequently, state departments of health are duped into denying care to those who are affected. I'm talking about victims of Lyme disease and other vector-borne diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome, aka ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, Gulf War syndrome, and kids who are brain damaged from contaminated vaccines. The mechanism is quite simple and abundantly explained in the scientific literature. Highly acylated lipoproteins, when injected, cause sepsis, which the immune system then combats by downregulating itself permanently, known as tolerance. In this environment, viruses such as Epstein-Barr, CMV, zoster, and even live attenuated vaccine viruses can become chronically reactivated or unattenuated. I can provide all the scientific documentation you need, Mr. Attorney General, sir. How can your office help? I suggest beginning with victims of Lyme disease, or rather victims of the denial of Lyme disease. The problem is that the case definition, which dictates the testing, fraudulently excludes the acquired immune deficiency cases. In a nutshell, the only CDC-sanctioned testing is antibody-based. People whose immune systems are shot don't produce the required antibodies to get a positive test. This case definition was put in place in 1994 when the now failed Lyme-Rix vaccine was in the trial stage, and it became known that the antigen used, oh, by the way, a highly acylated lipoprotein that's also shed by the organisms that cause Lyme disease, was causing adverse events that looked exactly like what we know now as chronic Lyme disease or post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome. As a result, tick-borne diseases are drastically underreported in the state of Kansas, creating a false belief that the disease is not a threat. KDHE promotes this false information, putting Kansas citizens in harm's way. KDHE is required to report both Lyme disease and acquired immune deficiency syndrome, but only AIDS from HIV is recognized, so both diseases are severely underreported. Victims are fraudulently denied any diagnosis at all except false psychological diagnoses such as Munchausen syndrome, or psychosomatic, or crazy, or pretending to be sick. This sets them up for discrimination from employers, state agencies, insurance providers, medical providers, and even their own family members. Victims are denied medical treatment. Victims are denied disability insurance. Victims are a drag on the state's economy because they frequently can't work and can't afford health insurance. Not that it does them any good. Victims are frequently homeless. Victims are abused by the medical profession. They're denied any illness or treatment because the testing is fraudulent. They're dismissed from medical practices for being argumentative or difficult. Victims drive up healthcare costs because their complaints are repeatedly ignored by health professionals and they must go to multiple providers to find a single doctor, if they're lucky, who will treat their many medical conditions. The state has a responsibility to protect its citizens from the abuses of the federal agencies who claim these conditions do not exist, despite their own research to the contrary, and their claims that their testing for Lyme disease is valid. It is not valid, according to the FDA's requirements for validation of a scientific method. Are you still there? Am I still on? Somebody tell me I'm still on, because my phone battery's about to die. I need to wrap it up. All right, thank you. Okay, scientific method. This disease is a death sentence for innocent victims. Senator Richard Blumenthal sued the Infectious Diseases Society of America, IDSA, for antitrust when he was Attorney General of the state of Connecticut. IDSA is responsible for publishing the diagnostic and treatment guidelines that are followed by the CDC and therefore by all insurance providers and medical professionals. At the time, there was not a statute on the books in Connecticut to treat it as the criminal matter that it is. Research fraud, racketeering by CDC officers and IDSA members who own the patents, falsified the case definition, and wrote the guidelines. This is what we need prosecuted. We need every state, not just Kansas, but every state, to step up and protect its citizens. The feds have failed us on every level. We ask that all state attorneys general do their jobs as law enforcement and prosecute the individuals responsible for these medical abuses, fraud, racketeering, discrimination, and color of law crimes. This is what we need. We want the cops to do their job and protect the sick people who are facing discrimination at every level. And the worst level being that their illness is entirely denied. So that's it. That's what I did today. Good times. And hey, I'm not sad anymore. So get mad. Turn your sad into mad. It's kind of like turning your frown upside down, but not quite. Love you guys. Love my Lyme-ish. Peace. Battery's about to go. I'm out.